Hello there, good morning, and welcome to Rajiv Gandhi Daily News Channel, Rajiv Gandhi IAS Academy Daily News Analysis. And today I will be analyzing news for 27 December 2021. So, now moving on with the first news. The first news is from many days that Nagaland insurgency, which happened like recently, 13 people were killed by armed forces in Ottingmon district of Nagaland. So there was this panel will be decided that whether to continue this ASPA or not, because due to this ASPA, the armed forces have so much power over there in Nagaland or in the disturbed area which are there, so that they can they can arrest anybody, or they can simply shoot at anybody without any prior warning or anything. So due to which 13 civilians were killed recently at in Mon district in Nagaland, and a recent high level meeting is being done in New Delhi, which will decide to constitute a committee to study the possibility of withdrawing the Armed Force Special Power Act, that is ASPA, from Nagaland. And the committee will be headed by additional secretary will be heading that committee. A person of additional secretary rank will be heading that committee, and in Union Home Ministry will also be there, and Nagaland Chief Secretary will also be there, and also Director General of Police, that is DGP of Nagaland, will also be there. So these three people will be there: additional secretary of Union Government of Union, and then we have this Nagaland Chief Secretary will be there, and then we have the DGP of Nagaland. They are going to form a committee which will decide that whether ASPA should be continued or whether ASPA should be removed. And also they will be working on the disturbed area which is distributed across Nagaland. So which area should become under disturbed area and which area should be remain out of this? They will also discuss this kind of thing. And a court of inquiry will initiate disciplinary action also will be taken, because against those military personnel which opened fired upon civilians. So these were the basic key points of the news, that first is a committee will be heading, and second is they will decide what is disturbed area and what is not, and also a disciplinary action will be taken on those military personnel who were involved in killing those 13 civilians. Now moving on with the news, the thing is that what uh, what is this ASPA, that what ASPA is about. So as we all know, ASPA can give enormous power to normal military person for have this like to kill or to shoot at anybody in northeastern state especially. So ASPA come into force in the context of increasing violence. So it came into force in the context of increasing violence, okay, in northeastern state. And also ASPA gives armed force enormous power to maintain public order in disturbed areas. So second thing is, it has enormous power to armed force. And the third thing which is there is that uh, if reasonable suspicion exists, armed personnel can arrest a person, okay, and also they can enter a home or enter any premises for search purpose, and also can ban the possession of firearms. So these are the basic things about ASPA. So we can see that it gives enormous power to armed forces. So that's the reason ASPA is in news currently, because someone can even use force and can open fire without giving any warning. This is the most crucial part of ASPA. So moving on, that what is that disturbed area? So see, a disturbed area is one which is declared by notification under section 3 which is notification under section 3 of ASPA. And also it can be invoked in places where the use of armed forces in aid of civil power is necessary. So armed force is necessary. So in those kind of places, ASPA can be disturbed area can be categorized under ASPA. And an area can be disturbed or disputed between members of different religions. Religion can be a factor. Racial discrimination can be a factor, or language can be a factor, or even regional groups or caste, like regional groups or caste can be a factor in caste or communities, whatever the thing are there, can be a factor in describing a disturbed area. And also the central government or the governor of the state or administration of the union territory can declare the whole or part of the area as disturbed area. Either whole state can be declared as a disturbed state, or a part of that state can also be declared as a disturbed state, and this is decided by central government, or we can say union government and the governor of the state, governor. So they decide which area should be disturbed area and which area should be a normal area. It can be either a whole state or a part of the state. And also the Ministry of Home Affairs would usually enforce this act where necessary, but there have been exceptions where the center decided to forego its power and leave the decision to state governments. So basically the center is the main power here, but there were examples where the center have foregone their power here, and they have said that state government can also decide which area should be disturbed area, or on which area ASPA should be given. And once declared disturbed, the region is maintained as disturbed for a period of 3 months. Okay, 3 months straight, that the area is described as disturbed area, and the government of the state can suggest whether the act is required in the state or not. So a state government say is very must in this, not a must, but it can suggest. Although the final decision is on home ministry, but a state government can suggest whether to continue this or not. And first it is the disturbed area is only for 3 months it is declared, then it is increased. So there are few things that disturbed area come under section 3 of ASPA. It can be classified disturbed on the basis of religion, racial, language, and caste or community also. Either a whole state can be a disturbed state, or a part of a state can be a disturbed state, and this is decided by union government or the governor of the state. And the state government can also decide, and although most of the time the central government decide this. And also for 3 months period, first the disturbed area is, when the disturbed area is notified, it's only for 3 months, then it is increased as per the as per the necessities are there. So these were the basic thing about disturbed area. And there are also many controversies regarding ASPA. So what are the basic controversy which we are seeing in ASPA? So the act provides security personnel with absolute power. So first thing is, it's give them absolute power without being accounted for, and no accountancy. So no accountancy is there, that why they are firing someone or why they are arresting someone. So and which will lead to different atrocity. So this is the first controversy regarding ASPA. And also ASPA basically violates the UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights, UDHR, like basic human right is there. So and also it violates International Convention on Civil and Political Rights, that is ICCPR, that is International Covenant on Civil and Political Right. And also, and there is this one thing which is India is also a signatory, that is Convention Against Torture. So Convention Against Torture is an international convention, and where it is said that people which are in prison should not be tortured. So India is also a signatory to that. So firstly it violates UDHR, that is Universal Declaration of Human Rights, then ICCPR, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and then it also violates Convention Against Torture. And also there is this BP Jeevan Reddy committee. So committees are, we all know, are important when it comes to our UPSC examination. So what happens in BP Jeevan Reddy committee is that they examine in 2005 in Vedappan Moily report, and also that second ARC. So Veerappan Moily and second ARC report. So Veerappan Moily report and second ARC we all know, Administrative Reforms Commission report, that was in 2007. So all these committees and reports say that this act should be repealed, and still this act is there. So it goes against the BP Jeevan Reddy committee, Veerappan Moily report, and also second ARC report, which was published in 2013. And also there's this Justice Verma committee in 2013, and also this Justice Hegre commission was there. Justice Hegre commission was there in 2013 itself, and they supported need to address the abuse committed under ASPA, and also they advocated to end the effective impunity enjoyed by security force. So these two committees, that is Justice Verma and Justice Hegre commissions and committee, they both said that the abusers should be addressed, and a fixed trial should be there of this abuse, and the impunity enjoyed by the security force should be ended. So these are different committees which is regarded with the ASPA. And also in this Justice Hegre commission, what happened that Supreme Court appointed this Hegre commission in 2013, and it found that seven deaths in 6 cases it investigated were extrajudicial. So this commission found that most of the killings which happened in ASPA were extrajudicial. So it raised question of ASPA itself. So moving on, but still government is having this kind of rule. So why they are having this kind of rule? So what is the need for ASPA? So first need is, army is the opinion that ASPA is absolutely necessary to combat insurgency. So the first thing which is necessary for ASPA is to combat insurgency, and to protect borders. When we will see the ASPA ruling state, so all the major states which are having ASPA are the northeastern state and Jammu and Kashmir. So these border states are there. So to combat insurgency in border areas, ASPA is kind of necessary. And also in a virulent insurgency, security force cannot operate without the cover of ASPA. Without it, there would be hesitation, which would work as the advantage of insurgency. So hesitation part is there because every time they have to take permission from their higher authority to do some action. So that's why also ASPA is kind of necessary thing. And also the third point about why this ASPA is needed is that army official can cite the need to protect the moral and integrity of the army. So this also gives a high moral and integrity to the armed forces, because they think okay, they have some extra power which is not given to some normal civilian or any other army personnel. So they give the in those areas high moral and integrity is needed, because these are very insurgent areas, border areas especially, and northeastern area of India. So basically three things are there: that it helps in combating insurgency, it removes the hesitation which are there in army personnel, they don't have to take permission many a times, and also it help in boosting the moral and the integrity of the army. So what is the way forward then, that how we should proceed with this ASPA thing, so that we can come on a simple ground, that okay, this much is allowed. So ASPA should be amended to make it more comprehensive with elaborative rules with respect to the manner of investigation of alleged human rights violation. So human rights violation should not be there when it comes to ASPA. Okay. And also the army should view human rights violation, previous cases should be taken in account. Previous cases should be taken in account, that what are different kind of abuses which is done, and army should put all the details in public domain, that what they are doing with this those who were persecuted during ASPA rule. So public domain, these details should be there. And government also should try to resolve the long running insurgency should be a means it should be abolished completely. It should have to be ended, because under the cover of insurgency, people are taking this armed forces have this extrajudicial power. So insurgency should have to be ended, so that this extrajudicial power should not be there with the armed forces. And also development deficit northeast region is also said to be the major reason for insurgency. So that if the development is increased, insurgency, there is a great chances that insurgency should decrease. So development increases, insurgency decreases, and then this infrastructure development would be done, and industrialization of this area should be done, so that there are less cases of insurgency, and hence this ASPA is removed completely. So this was about ASPA. Moving on with the next news. So the next news is that India hands over food aid and defense equipment to Mozambique, and over in two FIC, that is fast interceptor craft, and other self defenses equipment to Mozambique were given to assist capacity building of the Central African nation, because there are many terror attacks on those nation. And also there is this naval ship, that is INS Kesari, which was taking all these equipments, and it reached the port of Mozambique to deliver 500 tons of food. Also 500 tons of food were given to Mozambique nation. And also it comes under the 8th edition of Mission Sagar. So Mission Sagar has different edition. So this edition is Mission Sagar 8th edition. We will discuss all these things in details right now. And also the equipment will help Mozambique in like the northern part of Mozambique is hit by a terrorist group, that is Islamic State, and which is also known as Daesh, and it affiliates have rapidly spread in Central Africa. So this kind of fast interceptor craft will help in fighting with this terrorism. And also a similar mission was done in May June to provide humanitarian and medical assistance aid to Maldives, Mauritius, Seychelles, and Madagascar and Comoros. So all these Indian Ocean countries were also given help previous to Mozambique. So what is this Mission Sagar, and what the help given to Mozambique? We will discuss it shortly. So see, this is the basic Indian Ocean region, which is close to Africa. So Mission Sagar is term coined by PM Modi in 2015 on its Mauritius visit. So on its Mauritius visit, PM Modi coined the term Mission Sagar with focus on the blue economy. We all know the blue economy is the economy which is concerned with the seawater. So 3 points are there. Prime Minister Modi inaugurated this in 2015, termed it as blue economy, and it is a maritime initiative that gives priority to Indian Ocean region. That is, we call it simply as IOR, Indian Ocean region, for ensuring peace. What are its objective? Peace, stability, and prosperity. Peace, stability, and prosperity in Indian Ocean region. So these are the three main objective of this Mission Sagar, and the goal is to seek a climate of trust and transparency and respect for international rules, basically maritime rules. So these are the goals which are set by this Mission Sagar. And also in this mission, sensitivity to each other interest and peaceful resolution of maritime issue and increase in maritime cooperation is also decided, and it is in line with the Indian Ocean Rim Association. So Indian Ocean Rim Association is basically an association of those country which is in Indian Ocean. So all these objective of Mission Sagar is in line with the Indian Ocean Rim Association. So basically, these are the countries which is come under Mission Sagar, that is Comoros, Madagascar, Mozambique, and all those countries which are close to Indian Ocean region of Africa. So these are the thing. And moving on with the Mission Sagar mission, there were different early stages of the Mission Sagar. So for stage one, it started in May June, and Indian Navy have given like medical emergency, essentially medical to these nations. And also Mission Sagar 2 also happened in May June of 2020. This happened in 2020 also. Part 2 also happened in 2020, where India reached out to Maldives and Mauritius and Seychelles and Comoros and provided them with food and medicine. And also Mission Sagar 3 was there, which gave assistance to Cambodia. And this Mission Sagar, which is a Mission Sagar part 8, is Mission Sagar part 4 was there in Comoros to deliver rice. And this Mission Sagar part 8 is currently going on. It's helping Mozambique. So basic a big line of chain is there for this Mission Sagar. And right in 2015, PM Modi envisioned it, and from then it's working. And now moving on to the next news, there is this news from that anti-dumping duty is imposed on Chinese goods, and India has imposed anti-dumping duties on 5 Chinese products basically, and it include aluminum and some chemicals. So India has imposed this sorry aluminum and chemical, and also this is done to protect local manufacture from cheap imports of the neighboring nation. And according to a separate notification of the CBIC, that is CBIC is Central Board of Indirect Taxes, Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs. So CBIC was imposing these duties and have imposed on certain flat rolled products of aluminum, sodium hydrosulfide, which is used in dye industry. So this chemical is sodium hydrosulfide, and silicon sealant used in manufacturing solar photovoltaic cell. And also it is used in thermal power application. And also HFC, that is hydrofluorocarbon component of R32, and hydrofluorocarbon carbon blends were also used in refrigerator. So these 5 products they have like imposed a, yeah, see, there are these 5 products, and India has imposed duty, the anti-dumping duty on these 5 products. So moving on with the news itself. So what are the key points? That its recommendation was done by, as I have said earlier, Commerce Ministry, and like previously it is done by Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs, like CBIC is done it, and it comes under the Commerce Ministry. And within CBIC there is this Directorate General of Trade Remedies. Within CBIC, there is this Directorate General of Trade Remedies (DGTR), which impose these dumping duties. And also, this product have been exported at lower cost than of the Indian market. So, if the cost is as lower, then product of Indian market will also go low, because it will, to maintain the competition, people will buy this Chinese cheap things, and the Indian labor cost will go down. So that will affect Indian market, and domestic industry will suffer badly. So that's why they have imposed anti-dumping duty, and we will discuss this anti-dumping duty in details also. And also, it has India has previously also slapped duty on gypsum powder, gypsum which is produced by Iran. And also India has imposed duty on Oman, Saudi Arabia and UAE for different kind of chemicals and powders. Basically gypsum powder was the main thing about this. So moving on with this anti-dumping thing. So what is basically dumping? So dumping is said to occur when the goods are exported by a country to another country at lower price. So exported at lower price than the price at the home market. So exported at lower price. So this is a unfair trade practice which can distort effect of international trade. Okay, and the objective behind this anti-dumping measures are that to rectify the situation arising on of dumping. So to rectify this dumping thing, this anti-dumping duty is imposed, and it's a trade distortive effect. And in the long term, anti-dumping duties can reduce international competition. It can reduce international competition of domestic markets or domestic companies. International competition of domestic companies. It can reduce it. So and also it is a protectionist kind of measure that a domestic government impose on foreign imports that it believes that are priced below. And the use of anti-dumping measure can be used as a fair competition instrument, and it is also permitted by World Trade Organization, that is WTO. So what are the different WTO provisions? We will be discussing that. So WTO defined the validity of this anti-dumping duty. So the validity is of a period of 5 years. Beyond 5 years, the imposing of that duty would be illegal. And also there is this sunset clause, sunset review, which can be said associated with this WTO provision, and it can be extended for a further period of 5 years through a sunset or expiry review. Suppose these 5 years are about to end, and but still that country which is sending cheap goods to our country is saying that they will keep sending those goods. So as an sunset review or sunset clause can be added, so that this 5 years can be extended further, and such a review can be initiated suo moto on suo moto basis of a duly substantial request received from behalf of the domestic industry. So India is doing all this thing under the provisions of WTO. So nothing is illegal in that. So as we have seen here, I have discussed a term, that is DGTR, Director General of Trade Remedies. So what is this DGTR? So basically it is the apex national authority under the Ministry of Commerce and apex body under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, C&I. Okay, for administrating all the trade remedial measures including anti-dumping. It measures anti-dumping and also countervailing duties. Suppose someone is escaping duty taxes, so it will come under Director General of Trade Remedies, countervailing duties and safeguard measures. So if some company is a foreign company or Indian company even are trying to escape this kind of thing, that will be countered by Director General of Trade Remedies, which is an apex body of Commerce and Industry, Ministry of Commerce and Industry. And it also provide trade defense support to the domestic industry, and it can provide trade defense to domestic industry. Okay, because it is kind of controlling the foreign industry from malpractices. So this kind of thing boost up the domestic industry naturally. So moving on with the next news. So this is a very sad news that Desmond Tutu, who fought for Rainbow Nation, who was a Nobel laureate, dies at the age of 90. And he was an archbishop and described as the South Africa moral compass. For example, we say Gandhi as Bapu or father of the nation. So similarly, South Africa moral compass was referred as Dis1T2. So this kind of fact can be important for prelims, because they may ask question who was the moral compass of South Africa, and they may ask Nelson Mandela, Desmond Tutu, or Jacob Zuma, or something like that, or confusing option like that. So if we are knowing those things, we can simply say that okay, Desmond Tutu was the defined as the moral compass of South Africa, and he won Nobel Peace Prize in 1984. So in 1984, he won a Nobel Peace Prize, and he was one of the last leader of apartheid. And will be discussing what apartheid is. So apartheid was basically a policy which was imposed by the British or the colonists on the South African people, and he coined the term rainbow nation. So basically, when after this apartheid ended, Nelson Mandela was given the prime minister post of president post of South Africa. So that rainbow comes from different colors, because in South Africa people from many ethnicity and color are there, and for the first time a black president of South Africa was elected. So from there the concept of rainbow color came in. However, he was also a critic of the present African National Congress and African National Congress, that is ANC, and he also said that the malpractice within the African National Congress should also end. So, what are the apartheid policy? We will be discussing it. So, what happened that during the 17th and 18th century, many trade companies from Europe colonized South Africa, and they imposed some racial discrimination rule. So they imposed some racial discrimination rule, and these racial discrimination rule are basically known as apartheid. And this was unique to South Africa, and this was imposed by white Europeans colonizer, and they lived for a long period on South Africa. So basically there was this three basic rule under apartheid. So first rule was that there were no voting rights to black people, or basically non-white people of any origin, not just black. If you are an Indian living in South Africa, you cannot vote, or if you are a person of Indian origin in South Africa or Gujarati origin, you cannot vote in South Africa. And also there was this strict segregation. We all know that Mahatma Gandhi was removed from first compartment in South Africa itself. So there was this strict segregation, and they were oppressive for the blacks, because they were forbid from living in white areas, and they could work in white areas only if they have a permit. And train, buses, taxi, hotels, hospitals, schools and college, everything was separated into white blocks and black blocks, and they could not visit the churches where the white worshipped. So a complete strict segregation was maintained for black and white people in South Africa. And there was also a ban on press was there, and ban on association was there, and also there was ban on protest. So they were trying to see that nobody protest against the white colonizer, so black could not form this kind of association, or cannot even protest, or cannot go against the extreme discriminatory treatment they are facing, and this hindered the capacity to fight against apartheid. So peaceful fight was not possible, and was very tough for them. So India also played a very crucial role in the freedom struggle of South Africa. So what are the different roles played by India? So first role, we all know Gandhi has a huge impact on South Africa, because despite his great respect and sympathy for the Africans, Gandhi political activities were confined essentially to the Indian community. His influence on freedom movement in South Africa country was therefore by example. However, if indirect, his imprint on the course of South African struggle was inedible, as recognized by Nelson Mandela. So this kind of thing kind of give motivation to South African people, especially the freedom fighter Nelson Mandela. And also there's this huge Indian diaspora living in South Africa, and the bond between the national movements of India and South Africa became stronger due to this Indian diaspora, and especially during Second World War. And with the encouragement of Indian national movement, they recognized that their destiny was not linked to that of African majority, and their participation in the struggle increased. And also India complained to United Nations in 1946 on the racial discrimination in South Africa. So we can see, even though in 1946 India was still a colony of England, but he was opposing other this practice of colonization in United Nation itself. And also India was against apartheid, because right from its origin, right from 1947, India is voicing the people of South Africa against apartheid. And India co-sponsored the General Assembly resolution of 1962, which is a very important resolution it urges all states to impose sanction against South Africa and establish this a special committee against apartheid. So whenever apartheid is discussed, 1962 General Assembly resolution is a kind of important fact. And in the specialized agency of United Nations, the movement of non-aligned countries and the Commonwealth, as well as numerous other organizations and forum in India, was maintained, and India was active in calling for the isolation of apartheid regime and support for liberation struggle. So because during the early 70s and 80s, India was a part of NAM, and India is a founding member of NAM, that is non-alignment movement. So all these countries of NAM were against apartheid. So India played a crucial role when it comes to South African freedom liberation. So as we know, UPSC have this habit of connecting things. So as we know that Desmond Tutu have died, so we can expect a question on these kind of things also. So it's kind of necessary for us to know this fact. And there's this another news, which is right to be forgotten is going on, because last week the center told Delhi High Court that right to be forgotten is a part of fundamental right. So government of India told Delhi High Court that right to be forgotten is a part of fundamental right. So basically, what is right to be forgotten? So it allows a person to seek deletion of private information. So basically is a deletion of private information on internet. So the concept was basically founded in European Union, and it passes on to India now. And at least 8 petitions are pending before Delhi High Court, and seeking the removal of their private information from the internet. And court's record of previous conviction and proceeding and news reports of past events. So they are saying that these things should be deleted as a part of right to be forgotten from internet. And which countries have such law? EU adopted this law right in 2018 in its General Data Protection Regulation, that is GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation. And Article 17 of General Data Protection Regulation provides for the right to erase or certain categories of personal data to be erased, that which is considered no longer necessary, or that for which consent has to be withdrawn, or processing of which has been objected, or personal data which is unlawfully processed, and data where there is a legal obligation. These kind of data EU have said to its member countries that a person has whole right to have to be forgotten from internet if these kind of things like his consent or his or her consent is not taken. And also, what is the position of this kind of thing in India? So in a reply on the petition, the Delhi High Court said that the right to privacy is a part of our fundamental right. Right to privacy is a part of our fundamental right. And it was basically said in KS Puttaswamy judgment. KS Puttaswamy judgment. So KS Puttaswamy judgment is a landmark judgment when it comes to right to privacy. And whenever we are discussing this right to privacy thing, we have to mention this Puttaswamy judgment when we will be discussing this kind of things in our main answer writing. We have to mention KS Puttaswamy in our right to privacy answer. And also there is this right to forgotten is still uh, mm, kind of evolving in India. It's not in its final phase. We can say right to forgotten is evolving, because there are still many cases where right to forgotten is not taken so much seriously. And the government said that personal data protection bill, which is a joint parliamentary committee report on which was tabled on December 16, contains provisions to the doctrine of right to freedom. So that's why we said that right to forgotten, we can say, yeah. So that's why I said that it is still evolving in India, because we can see many reports and many judgments coming onto this way, which are defining this kind of thing. So we can expect like from like 2 to 3 years down the line, we have a clear figure on right to be forgotten, because it's still evolving, and we are not that advanced of that of European nation when it comes to this term. And how Indian courts have ruled so far. So in May 2019, a judgment was passed by Justice Pratibha. May 2019, Justice Pratibha, we can mention her. And what she said that in Delhi High Court, she was dealing with a civil suit seeking removal of certain news reports on Me Too allegation, and it was against the managing director of a media house. And she said that right to be forgotten and right to be left alone are inherent aspect of right of privacy. So this kind of thing, and she restrained republication of these reports which were there of that person. So she said that that person also, although he is a convict, but he still got this right to be forgotten. And then also in April 2021, the court directed removal of judgment from Google, but Google opposed this kind of thing, that it cannot remove, the algorithm didn't allow. So this kind of thing is there. So Supreme Court said Google that some judgment should be removed from search engine, but Google denied that thing, and that is still under process. And also in January 2017, a unique case happened that Karnataka High Court ordered its registry to ensure that any search engine does not reflect a woman name in an order which was passed in 2015. So that woman actually won that case, and that case was of 2015, and her name still do not appear on internet search engine. So this kind of thing was there in right to be forgotten. And also in November 2020, this is a very important case, because this can also cover up our social issues topic, because right to be forgotten is basically connected to our society. So this can also, although this comes in our science and tech or even in polity, and this can also come in our social issues, because these are socially connected issues. And also in 2040 Odisha High Court, 2020 Odisha High Court said that in a ruling which was regarding of a rape accused, and he said that those videos were on Facebook. So he said that these kind of things are distorting his image, and he want it to be removed. So High Court of Odisha ruled in favor of that person. So we can say that even if a person is accused and his video or any information or any data is on internet, but still that person have the right to disassociate his data from internet if he or she do not have that consensus made on. So these were all the things about today's news. So thank you for all that, and please do subscribe to our YouTube channel and our Telegram channel, and see you tomorrow. Thank you.